So those are the kind of things that we have to... You may well get those as diagrams, you may well get those as a simple story, which is the best structure. So if they make one product, if it's similar, functional. If they make lots of different products, divisional. Now, what kind of things influence how our organisation is put together? The outside world, we've already talked about the economy, political, social, that might make a difference. Are our customers, do they need a lot of looking after? Divisional might be better. Do they not need a lot of looking after? Are they all fairly similar? Functional might be better. The culture of our workers, well, we'll talk about culture another time, so we won't worry about that yet. The span of control and the scalar chain, we're going to come and talk about those in a second. We need to think about how many managers we actually want. We need to think about, are our staff theory X or theory Y? Can we leave them to get on and do their own thing, or do they need a lot of supervision? So all of these things might make a difference to how our organisation is put together. Now, first of all, span of control. The span of control, how many people report to a single manager? So, diagram on the left, we have got a span of control of 7. The one on the right, span of control of 3. Now, it's how many people directly report to a manager. So, the one on the right, if I now add in this person's boss, there we go. What is the span of control of that person who's at the very top? And the answer is 4. There are 4 people, 1, 2, 3, 4, who directly report to that person that's circled. We're not worried about what goes on anywhere else. So the span of control is how many people actually report to you. Now, what will affect that? Geographical distribution. If people are all in the same place, it's very easy to look after a lot of them. If I've got 10 people and they all work in the same office as me, and I've got a desk that faces them, it's very easy for me to manage all 10 of them, span of control 10. But if they're spread out all around the country, then I can't look after them as much. I probably can only look after 2 or 3 of them because it takes more time. I've got to phone them up, I've got to talk about things on the phone. You know, it's just harder. So I can't look after as many people. Similarly, their ability. Good people, I can supervise more of them. People who are not as skilled, I've got to supervise less of them because I've got to spend more time with them. Their personalities. Some people like to be helped and some people like to be left alone. If they like to be left alone, I can look after more of them. The amount of support that I'm willing to give them. The amount of support that they actually need. If they don't need much help, again, I can look after a lot. If they do need a lot of help, then I can't. So all of these things make a difference. Now, notice what's happening here. What I am saying is that we should look at all of these influences and then decide what's the most appropriate number of people for a manager to supervise. We shouldn't do it backwards. What happens in lots of organisations is they decide you're going to look after 4 people. Whereas what should happen is we should decide, is 4 the best number based on everything else that we've got there? So that 4 should come at the very end of things. Now, the span of control leads on to what's called the scalar chain. And I do apologise about all these. If you draw a diagram of all the people in the organisation, what does it look like? A tall, narrow structure means we have lots of bosses, all of them looking after only a few people. So there's lots of layers of management. Each manager only looks after a few people. That would be appropriate if people need lots of supervising. My sister used to work in a hospital and that's what they had. Basically, they had come up with most people supervised 4 or 5 other people. So that was the span of control for virtually everybody. It was about 4 or 5 people. So you had lots of managers, lots of different levels of nurses, because obviously you want to supervise them so they're not doing anything that's potentially going to harm a patient. Whereas on the other hand, in this second diagram, in the bottom one, you've got what's called a flat structure. And a flat structure means there's very few bosses. In this example, in my diagram, there's only 2 managers. There's one at the top and there's one further down. Because there doesn't need to be any more, because each manager is supervising a lot of people. That's the sort of thing you tend to get in an accountancy college, because most of the lecturers get on and do their own thing anyway. So which one of those is best depends on the circumstances. Now, you may remember a couple of sessions ago we talked about IT, and we talked about delayering. So one of the things that IT is, it's delayered companies. It means delayering means going from that top one down to the bottom one. It means that because we use IT, we can supervise more people, and therefore we don't need as many managers. Now, that's the sort of thing that's happened. If you remember, I said one of the things that makes a difference for the spanner control is geography. Now, 20 years ago, I had to phone up people around the country. Now, with emails, with mobile phones, I could have people all around the country, all around the world, and still be able to contact them just as easily. So that could be what a multinational used to look like, and maybe it's moved towards the bottom one. So, underneath that, centralisation and decentralisation. Who makes the decisions? Centralisation basically means that decisions are made by head office. Head office make the decisions, and everybody else simply does what they're told. Now, that is very appropriate in lots of circumstances. So, it's not appropriate in all. So, an alternative is decentralisation. Decentralisation is that decisions are made by people lower down the organisation. Now, as an example, if I worked for a centralised company, they would tell me what notes to use, what examples to be giving you when I'm talking to you. They would tell me what chapters to do, what order to do things in. I would just do what I'm told. Now, our organisation uses decentralisation, which means that I am allowed to make those decisions for myself. Now, that has a lot of advantages. It's faster. I get on and do what I think is best without asking anybody. I have been teaching this for years, so I know I'm the person that actually knows what's going on. I know better than my manager how to do this. My manager's never taught this paper. Because I am making the decisions, I am motivated. Because I'm the one that makes the decisions, I learn from it. I tried this bit didn't work, so I need to try something different. If I just get told to do something different by my boss, I never know why. So I don't learn, don't develop. And it frees up the strategic apex. That's the people at the top. In case you're worried, the strategic apex is the people who are at the top of the organisation. Rather than worrying about what David is teaching, they can get on and do important things, like where we're going to expand the business to. Now, there are problems, of course, with letting me do things. Duplication. If there is another F1 lecturer somewhere in the organisation, they are also doing their own notes. They're spending time doing things that I've already done. It's hard to compare people. It's difficult to compare me with another F1 lecturer because our notes are different. The order we do things in is different. There will be more training required because everybody's got to be trained in how to write the notes as well as how to deliver the material. And those two things aren't the same. Writing notes is not the same as delivering it. There will be inconsistencies. I will do something in one way and the other F1 lecturer will do it in a different way. And you are a student, you do one course with them, you do another course with me, and we're doing different things. Which one is right? And finally, something that will become a big deal when you get up to paper P5 is what's called dysfunctional decisions. That simply means I will make a decision what's best for me, not necessarily what's best for the company. If things are made centrally, my boss will probably make a decision that's best for the company. I will make a decision that's best for me. That becomes a big deal later on in the courses. Not in F1, but later on. So are you going to have all the decisions made by people at the top, centralisation, or all of them made by people who are lower down, talking to customers, decentralisation? They're both good in different ways. So in the exam, maybe you'll have a situation where they've got a problem because they've got it wrong, or it may be they just simply ask you for a list of what's good and what's bad. Now, following on from that, we have the hierarchy of a guy called Anthony. And what Anthony talks about is he says there are basically 3 different levels inside an organisation. At the bottom, there is the operational level. This is day to day. This, I'm afraid, is me coming in, doing the teaching. This is what most accountants will be doing, processing the invoices, doing things on a regular basis. It's routine. The people at the very top, the strategic people, are thinking about fundamental decisions that affect the entire organisation. Should we expand abroad? Should we raise some finance by issuing some shares? Should we go to a bank and raise some debt? Now, you will get all of these kind of people. They will all be in the finance department. Down at the bottom, you will have the sales ledger clerks, and up at the top, you'll have the finance director. But all of these people will be inside a department. They'll all be inside a company. The key thing is to think about what they are actually doing. Down at the bottom, you do the same stuff over and over and over again. At the top, you do very different stuff, and you may only ever do it once. You may only ever make the decision to expand abroad once, and if it doesn't work, you never do it again. Now, that's going to make a big difference later on, again, in the papers, when we start talking about paper P3, and particularly P5. The stuff that you do in P5 is very much aimed at the top. The stuff that you do in F2 is very much aimed at the bottom. If you think about the stuff you're doing in F2, variances, regular, done the same way all the time. P5 will start talking about something completely different. So the idea is that we need to know who is doing the stuff at the top and who is doing the stuff at the bottom. There's got to be some kind of distinction between them because they work in completely different ways. So you may well get a worker and you're told this is the jobs that they do. Which level are they at? Strategic tends to be looking ahead. Functional tends to be looking behind.